bold robbery in Ecuador. A man points a gun at a TV reporter live on air outside of a soccer stadium in the country's biggest city.
Texans deserve answers.
From a power emergency to a water crisis.
They turned our electricity on, they turned our water on.
Tonight, serious questions about how it's come to this. Roughly 14 million Texans cannot drink their water at home without boiling it, and it could be days before that changes. Residents scrambling to get water from wherever they can, even by melting snowmen. And as his state is in the midst of an unprecedented crisis, the major backlash Senator Ted Cruz is facing tonight after jetting off with his family to Cancun.
I do think in time of crisis, the place and the only place I want to be is with the people I represent.
And when will temperatures finally warm up in Texas? And is the East Coast out of the woods just yet after another snowy Thursday? Our Rob Marciano standing by with the forecast. Our in-depth report about the toll this pandemic is taking on Latino communities, especially undocumented immigrants, sometimes too scared to seek the care they so desperately need.
I am definitely hearing also patients who are afraid and concerned and have hesitation about the vaccine.
And vaccine requirement? When you eventually go back to work physically, can your employer tell you you need to get a shot or else? A celebration 8 years in the making. Perseverance has touched down on Mars. We have complete coverage of the most ambitious trip to the red planet ever attempted. Good evening, everyone. I'm Lindsay Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. Absolutely unacceptable. That's how the governor of Texas describes the crisis in the Lone Star State. Now that the lights are slowly starting to come back on, the extent of the catastrophe is really being illuminated. More than 13.5 million Texans cannot drink their water tonight, and it could stay that way for days. And that's if residents even have working pipes in their homes to get the water. For some of those who don't, they were lining up to fill jugs and buckets with water from a hose. Good Samaritans and public figures stepping up to help distribute. Hospitals remain under severe stress tonight, and many without water. At one hospital, nurses were forced to use bags instead of toilets. Meanwhile, Texas Senator Ted Cruz is facing major backlash tonight for his family trip to Cancun. We're also learning harrowing new details about how this Texas-sized mess could have been much worse. Officials say that the state was just seconds and minutes away from losing power for months. There are major questions tonight as we learn that officials failed to heed the warning 10 years ago to winterize the grid. Our Marcus Moore once again leads us off.
Tonight, power finally coming back to hard-hit Texas, albeit slowly. But some 13 million people in the state still must boil water to drink. And tonight, serious questions about why problems with their electrical grid weren't fixed after a similar situation a decade ago. Officials revealing today that on Sunday, demand was so high and conditions so cold, the entire grid was moments away from catastrophic failure.
It was seconds and minutes, given the amount of generation that was coming off the system at the same time that the demand was still going up significantly.
Overnight families suffering in the dark. Outside Austin, Julie Crawford has been boiling snow for her family to use as their primary water source.
We're running dangerously low on water. So now what we've been doing all day is actually coming outside, getting snow, putting it in our pots, and heating it on our propane grill.
Hospitals around the state turning to generators and water trucks. In Austin, a facility with 300 patients losing heat. Now the struggle to get basic necessities. Long lines stretching far beyond the doors at this Austin grocery store and outside this fast food restaurant.
Look at that, all the way down the street. People are hungry.
Houstonians being warned they may have to keep boiling their water until Monday.
Water ready.
Disaster relief organizations, as well as the city, handing out bottled water to families who need it. And although the power is coming back, problems in Texas still remain.
And this is what we've seen across the state, water pipes bursting and firefighters responding to reports of possible fires. This catastrophe unfolding in so many ways for several days.
The storms that plague the South now moving east, blowing snow and ice, rain and wind. And tonight, looming questions about why ERCOT, the private company that runs about 90% of the Texas power grid, was not prepared for a weather event like this, when conditions were even worse than in February of 2011, when ice and cold knocked out power to more than 3 million across Texas just as the state was hosting the Super Bowl.
Every 10 years, it seems we get a really bad one. And in the last one, federal reports suggested we need to winterize for the lowest known temperatures. Texas didn't do that.
The state's independent grid system, the only one in the country, means they don't have to adhere to federal regulations.
And ERCOT failed to heed those warnings. Marcus Moore joins us now from Dallas. Marcus, more Texans are getting their power back on now after a difficult few days, but the dangerous cold, they're still not letting up.
No, they really aren't, Lindsay. And tonight, the low is expected to be 15 degrees with the wind chill at 7. But there is a small glimmer of hope. Tomorrow, for the first time in 6 days, temperatures are expected to get back above freezing. And that will certainly be a moment of real relief for people here.
Yeah, we can imagine. And we also saw that outrage today over those photos of Texas Senator Ted Cruz taking his family to Cancun right in the middle of this emergency. How are Texas residents reacting to that? And in general, what's their overall response to how political leaders in the state have handled this crisis?
Well, Lindsay, as you can imagine, as soon as those pictures started to surface on social media, there was a very strong reaction to it. Obviously, people upset and saying that the senator should have stayed here in Texas. But then there are supporters as well who said that he deserves a break. But overall, there are people who are simply frustrated about the fact that there was nothing done to address the vulnerabilities with the power grid after the last major outage here in this area back in 2011. And so there are a lot of questions left to be answered, and certainly plenty of frustration to go around this entire state.
Marcus Moore, our thanks to you. And as you just saw there, millions in Texas continue to be impacted by a collision of various crises, from the cold bursting pipes, lack of water, all of this on top of COVID. And joining us now are two of those people who are right in the throes of it now. Elizabeth Felix, along with her daughter Amelia. Ladies, thank you so much for your time and joining us today. Elizabeth, first, I'd like to just start with you. How are you and your family doing? How are you coping through this time? What have the last few days been like?
The last few days have been really hard, but we have been coming together and sharing food. My daughter came over from her household. We've been putting all our food together and just doing everything we can. We went back over to the house yesterday and for hours just pulled up wet carpet with no power, and it was freezing cold. That's why I sound kind of hoarse right now, because I feel like I'm losing my voice.
And tell us what it was like when the pipes actually started bursting in your house. What kind of personal belongings were ruined, and what was going through your mind at that time?
Straight panic. I just couldn't believe it happened, because we took all the precautions that the news had told us to take with dripping our faucets, and we did everything we're supposed to do. And my daughter's room is completely ruined. My son's room is completely ruined. And my daughter is an independent music artist here in Houston, Texas. She goes by Million Michelle. We just had a studio put in our room, a spare bedroom, and everything is ruined, like thousands of dollars of equipment. Just everything is lost. And unfortunately, we did not have renter's insurance, so it's all lost for us.
Yeah, it's very, very devastating. My heart goes out to all those who have it worse. I've seen so many other people in my neighborhood, the same situation happen to them. When I found out that the pipes burst, I was the one who actually discovered it. It was very, very, like she said, I was just in shock, and it was so cold, and it was horrible, and we were all on our own. We didn't really know what to do. There is not much education on this type of weather. People up north don't understand, but we're doing everything that we can. Our power is still going in and out. We have no water. The water is polluted.
There's parasites in it.
Yeah, there's parasites in our water. Right now, we're just very fortunate to have our power on and to have a roof over our heads and to have food accessible. People are having trouble finding foods because stores are closed, and everybody is just really having to do anything they can to survive right now.
Yeah, we're a family of 5 right now, and we're down to 4 water bottles. And I just went from store to store to store trying to find water bottles and can't find any water to drink. So after we do this interview, we're going to actually get back on the road and try to find some more water.
Yes.
How frustrating is it? Are you angry? Do you feel that your state officials are doing enough?
I'm very angry. I don't think they're doing enough. No.
This should not happen.
We're just not prepared.
Yeah, and we've hearing things about the governor being in Cancun, and it's just
Senator Cruz,
like, really,
right?
Our government. our senator, it's really important that our government step in and do everything they can because, like I said, people in the South aren't educated on how to deal with this weather, and our houses are not built to combat these cold temperatures.
Many of the pipes, of course, they are not insulated because you're not used to having to deal with this kind of cold. Elizabeth and Amelia, we thank you so much for your time. All the best to you and your family.
Thank you so
too.
much.
Have a nice night.
You too. Bye-bye.
And let's now go straight to Rob in a snowy Philadelphia. Snow in the east, still cold in the south. What exactly are you tracking tonight, Rob?
Well, we've got one last wave of winter precip, Lindsay, that we've got to get through before any real warm-up begins, especially for the deep south. So let's get through that. We've got a little bit of snow that's heading through South Texas, including San Antonio tonight. There you see a winter storm warning and an expansive hard freeze warning for another dangerously cold night across that storm zone where so many people are still without power. Winter weather alerts up for the Northeast. Icing conditions for North Carolina and Virginia with that last low coming through off the coast of the Delmarva. Tomorrow could see some strong thunderstorms too across the southeast. And then another couple of inches potentially here in Philadelphia, up through Trenton, Newark, New York, up the I-95 corridor through Hartford, Providence, and Boston, kind of lingering a little bit tomorrow afternoon. Just enough to be plowable snow, but and also enough to create more of a headache. It's a very slow, elongated system that doesn't really get out of here until late tomorrow afternoon. All right, and that dangerously cold air tonight. Tomorrow morning, these are actual temperatures, not including the wind chill. 15 in Dallas. That'll freeze the pipes that aren't frozen. 25 along the coast there in Houston. 19 in Shreveport, and nearly freezing in New Orleans. And getting above freezing a little bit tomorrow afternoon, going back below freezing tomorrow night. But these are encouraging numbers as we look ahead towards the weekend. 40s, 50s in Dallas, 60s, Lindsay, in Houston. Not a moment too soon. That warmth is going to feel good as they finally thaw out of what has been a really catastrophic week for much of Texas.
They certainly need some relief. Rob Marciano, our thanks to you. From the cold, we turn to coronavirus and that winter weather shutting down vaccination sites and holding up vaccine deliveries across the country. This comes as a stunning new report finds that life expectancy in the U.S. has dropped because of the pandemic. Also tonight, Pfizer now testing the vaccine on pregnant women and a federal investigation of New York's COVID response. Here's ABC's Stephanie Ramos.
Tonight, that winter blast slowing the delivery of tens of thousands of vaccine doses across the country.
This is a real problem. We've lost a couple of days in terms of vaccine supply.
From New York City to Massachusetts, the governor asking for federal approval to send the National Guard down south to pick up the vaccine.
What we just need to do is make sure that the federal government's going to let the National Guard do this for us.
Vaccinations postponed or canceled in at least 42 states.
We're just going to have to make up for it as soon as the weather lifts a bit, the ice melts, and we can get the trucks out and the people out and getting the vaccine into people's arms.
But with vaccinations grinding to a halt in some places, vaccine trials are full steam ahead. Pfizer announcing it's testing its vaccine on 4,000 pregnant women around the world.
Pregnant women are at increased risk for upper respiratory tract infections and some other things. So immunizing them against this terrible virus would be helpful to the mom as well.
For now, pregnant women are encouraged to discuss a vaccine with their doctors. So far, about 20,000 pregnant women have received a vaccine without complications. A year into the pandemic, a new measure of its grim toll. The country seeing the steepest drop in life expectancy since World War II by 1 full year for whites, nearly 2 years for Latinos, and almost 3 years for Black Americans.
The differential among people of color versus white again underscores the health disparity.
And now new scrutiny of how the pandemic was managed early on. Sources tell ABC News that the FBI and federal prosecutors are investigating New York Governor Andrew Cuomo's COVID task force, focusing on its handling of nursing homes.
We were in the midst of dealing with a pandemic and trying to save lives.
Cuomo has long defended his decision to send hospitalized COVID patients back to nursing homes, saying he was just following federal guidance at that time.
COVID did not get into the nursing homes by people coming from hospitals.
A new report found nursing home deaths may have been undercounted by as much as 50%. The governor's top aide also recently admitted his office delayed turning the numbers over to state lawmakers. Vivian Zaya's mother died of COVID in a New York nursing home.
Our seniors deserve justice, and that requires an independent investigation.
Yeah, so many looking for justice for those senior citizens. Stephanie Ramos joins us now from a vaccination site at the Meadowlands that's closed because of the storm. Stephanie, what else can you tell us about that alarming new study about a decrease in life expectancy?
Well, we know that COVID has become a leading cause of death here in the U.S. and Dr. Fauci just today saying that the decrease in life expectancy is directly related to COVID. But of course, researchers are continuing to study that and look at that, given that we are still in a pandemic. Lindsay.
Stephanie Ramos, our thanks to you. We now head west to the state of California, which seems to finally be turning a corner in their battle with COVID. But the sting of the virus and subsequent pain and suffering of the last few months still lingers. Our Zareen Shah looks at the disproportionate impact this pandemic has had on the Latino community in California.
When the second big COVID wave hit Los Angeles, Ever Linares was one of the helpers it threatened.
He just has a whole heart in helping people.
He grew up tangled with gang members, but turned his life around to give back to his South LA community through his nonprofit Resilient.
He just decided to transition his life cold turkey.
Transitioned to husband and father of 7. Family is everything to the Linareses. But with so many people under one small roof, the raging virus caught a hold of all of them.
We started to get sick one by one, and as we began to get positive, it was me and my son first. We tried to isolate in a separate room, and then the next day the other results came in for my other 2 daughters, and then Ever was third, and then she and my other daughter were last.
The most recent wave sent cases amongst Latinos soaring 1,000%. Latinos make up 55% of statewide cases and 46% of deaths. Those numbers are not the case in surrounding wealthier, predominantly white areas, and even for much of the drive north, until you get closer to a place called Pacoima, yet another mostly Latino community.
Doctor, what percentage of your patients are from the Latino community?
We serve about an 80% Latino population.
Dr. Allison Campos, a practicing physician in her very own community, says chronic disease has led to many more becoming very sick when they're infected.
One of the big things that I've seen is that we unfortunately have higher rates of chronic diseases, especially diabetes, among other things like high blood pressure and high cholesterol and obesity. And we know that these are some of the main risk factors that increase a person's chances of developing severe COVID, being hospitalized, and also possibly dying.
A community more likely to get the virus, but less likely to get help.
Often our patients are undocumented, and they are often concerned about their legal status when they seek care. Will this be counted as a public charge, for example? And they also don't qualify for some of the benefits that are allowing people to just get by.
And even less likely to reap vaccine benefits.
Also, patients who are afraid and concerned and have hesitation about the vaccine. There are very few in this community currently. Geographically close to where we are, there are only 2 that I know of.
Pacoima is one of the hardest hit neighborhoods in the entire country. Nearly 1 out of every 5 Pacoima residents has fallen ill from COVID, and 1 in about 430 people has died at the hands of the virus.
We've seen about a 400% demand in food. So because of layoffs, lost jobs, lost income, people who never come to a food pantry before are coming to Mend looking for food.
Janet Marinaccio, Men's Organization CEO, says there never used to be a line for food, but in recent months, it crawls around the block. It stays that way for hours.
Typically, we might spend about $25,000 or $30,000 a year on food, supplemental food. This year, so far, it's easily over $100,000. They can't afford not to work. They can barely afford life when they are working. So to lose income places their family at risk.
Lara Hidalgo, another Mend employee who also grew up nearby, says it's been a struggle seeing her community pummeled by the pandemic.
We get updated COVID case numbers, and our communities are always the highest. It is gut-wrenching because here we are on the front lines trying to prevent a lot of this from happening, and unfortunately it's gotten out of control.
She fears losing pieces from an entire generation.
I do sense the fear, and I think touching on culture, it's just important for us to continue to uphold a lot of that culture and a lot of those traditions, because we are seeing the loss of our seniors.
Back in South LA, the fear of losing elders eventually hit the Linares family. Ever got so sick, his wife Andrea had to take him to the hospital in November.
I remember giving him a hug and a kiss and telling him it's going to be okay.
That was the last time she held the love of her life. She watched him walk into the hospital he had stepped into so many times before for other chronic care. Weeks later, a seemingly routine hospital call.
When they called me that evening, I thought it was the nurse to FaceTime for that evening, and they called me to let me know that my husband's heart rate is dropping.
The family rushed to say goodbye, but they missed him.
We got there like literally 3 to 5 minutes late. He had passed away already.
Passed away at a time his community was desperately in need of him the most for his food and PPE giveaways, his encouragement with gang members to turn their lives around. All of that suddenly gone.
I have a lot of people, when he passed away, come and tell me all the good he did to their life. It was always him last. He always put people before himself. He made sure we were good. Even if we didn't have anything, he'll make sure we were fine.
Zoreen Shah, ABC News Live, Los Angeles.
Our thanks to Zoreen for that. And today, history was made on an entirely different planet. NASA's remarkable trip to Mars is aimed at providing scientists clues about whether or not life ever existed on the planet. But before the rover arrived, it had to survive what is called 7 minutes of terror. Gio Benitez has more.
Tonight, history made. The NASA rover Perseverance landing on Mars, sending back this image, tweeting, "Hello world, my first look at my forever home."
Perseverance safely on the surface of Mars.
Cheers from NASA's Mission Control in California as Perseverance touches down. Roughly the size of a car, Perseverance is the most advanced robot ever sent into space, known around here lovingly as Percy. NASA was most worried about what they call the 7 minutes of terror. That's how long it took Perseverance to enter the atmosphere and land on Mars. Everyone's talking about these 7 minutes of terror. Take us through it. Why is this so dangerous?
It's really an incredible technical challenge to try and get safely onto the surface. We come in at 12,000 miles an hour, and we have to slow down to less than 2 miles an hour in 7 minutes.
And today they did it. Perseverance landing in a dried lake bed about the size of Lake Tahoe. Its next mission, drill into Mars and collect rock samples, searching for ancient signs of life to send back to Earth.
Touchdown confirmed.
Tonight, NASA is one step closer to answering the question, was there ever life on Mars? And Lindsay, we should tell you that Perseverance has 23 cameras on board. So over the next few hours and days, it will be sending back images from Mars in color, in higher definition than what we've been seeing there. But no doubt about it, it's going to be exciting. We're going to have a lot more coming up tonight in our special at 10 p.m. Eastern right here on ABC News Live. Lindsay?
Thank you, Gio. And that's right. Be sure to check out our special on today's historic Mars mission at 10 o'clock Eastern here on ABC News Live. And when we come back, the state is in a complete crisis, and yet Texas Senator Ted Cruz left with his family to Cancun. How he's defending his decision tonight. The virtual grilling, the CEO of Robinhood questioned about whether it favors the wealthy over average investors after the GameStop app debacle. But up next, can your boss make you get a COVID vaccine? Stay with us.
With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any other newscast. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir.
We have made it through another week together.
America's #1 most watched newscast across all of television.
Robin Roberts, George Stephanopoulos, Michael Strahan. Wake up with America's #1 most watched morning show. ABC's
Good Morning America. If you're getting tired of life on this planet,
T-1 minute.
then today, travel with us to Mars. Be there, see it all live as NASA attempts its biggest landing ever on the Red Planet in search of ancient life, the intergalactic drama, the tension, the history as it happens live. Mission to Mars, streaming live this afternoon on ABC News Live, starting at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. It will be out of this world. Brought to you by Adobe Sign. Business moves with Adobe. She spent 20 years behind bars for the murder of her millionaire husband. Now, for the first time since being released from prison, she tells her story.
I did not kill Ron.
But not everyone believes her.
I'm 100% convinced Margaret was responsible.
5 Weddings and a Murder. 2020, Friday at 9/8 Central on ABC.
The world may feel out of your control, but your happiness doesn't have to be. Learn the secrets to happiness. Listen to the 10% Happier podcast, free on Apple Podcasts.
ABC News honored winner for the second straight year with the Edward R. Murrow Award for Overall Excellence in Television. ABC News, America's #1 news source. Friday nights, 9/8 Central. True crime, cinematic, real-life drama, stunning, the unthinkable. Follow the clues, the hunt. True crime, 2020. Friday nights, 9/8 Central on ABC. Now, when it matters most, the straightforward facts. ABC News is America's #1 news. #1 in the morning, #1 in the evening, with America's most watched newscast. #1 in late night versus the competition. The #1 news magazine on Friday nights. #1 in politics across this historic election versus the competition. The #1 daytime talk show. And #1 in streaming news. ABC News is America's #1 news.
With more Americans getting the COVID-19 vaccine every day, we'll soon reach a point where more of us will be going back to the office or place of work on a regular basis. So that's gotten some businesses thinking about whether they could actually require their employees to get the vaccine as part of coming back to work in order to keep their fellow employees as well as customers safe. So could your job make you get the shot? ABC's Andrew Dimbert has this story.
For the better part of a year, as the pandemic crescendoed to unthinkable heights, the nation's top health officials have long maintained it would take a vaccine to really turn the tide.
When your turn comes up, please get vaccinated, both for your own safety, for that of your family, and that for the American community in general.
And as 2 vaccines have arrived to the public since December, the CDC says more than 40 million Americans have rolled up their sleeves to get the shot. More vaccinated Americans may signal a return to the days of going back to the office and cubicles, to assembly lines and kitchens and bars. But what if that return was dictated by the vaccine? Put another way, can your boss force you to take it?
Arguably, yes.
Charles Craver is a law professor at George Washington University and says while there are some exceptions, your employer can likely mandate all employees get the shot.
Employees who work for private employers are employed at will in the United States, which means I can terminate you for good cause, bad cause, or no cause at any time. And so if you don't cooperate with me and you don't have a religious issue, you don't have a Disabilities Act issue, and you don't come under some state law, I can terminate you if you're not willing to have the vaccine or to come to work where you're getting tested.
As COVID vaccines become more widely available, it's a question many employers, from large corporations to small businesses, may soon have to face. United Airlines CEO Scott Kirby said recently that the company is looking into requiring employees to take the vaccine, while noting other industries would need to buy in to make a requirement work.
I think the right thing to do, without question, is to make the vaccine mandatory. And what I hope is that there are a coalition of like-minded companies that will do the same thing. And I think if that does happen, it will just get the ball rolling.
So with more employees re-immersing themselves back into those close daily interactions with customers and coworkers alike, should employees face getting the vaccine over getting fired?
Anybody who wants to not get vaccinated, it's their body. And ultimately, they're responsible for their own body.
Jason Berry is the founder of Need Hospitality in Washington, D.C. and owns multiple restaurants. Instead of taking a punitive approach to employees getting the shot, he's rewarding those who do.
As soon as the vaccines are available, we'll be offering a variety of incentives for our employees because we want to encourage them to do it, even though we're not mandating it. That includes 4 hours of pay as a bonus when they're fully vaccinated.
The extra incentive isn't without reason. A Kaiser Family Foundation poll from January suggests about a third of the overall public is taking a wait-and-see approach to getting vaccinated. That's higher among minorities, with 43% of black adults and 37% of Hispanics saying they want to wait to take the vaccine. And roughly 3 of every 10 non-healthcare essential workers feel the same. Sue Wilmont is an essential worker at a Safeway grocery store near Seattle. Since the onset of the pandemic, even with strong COVID safety recommendations and guidelines, she knows how hard it is to still protect yourself and loved ones, even with masks and social distancing. It's why she doesn't think there's much need for a vaccine directive. Sue's ready to roll up her sleeve now.
It would just make me feel safer. It would make me feel like I'm not going to bring it home to my family. It would make me feel like I'm not going to pass it to my neighbors, my customers. It would be a comfort to me to get vaccinated, and I am just waiting for that.
And Joe Fasula of Garrity Supermarkets in Pennsylvania says the decision not to require his employees get the vaccine comes down to a matter of choice.
We don't think that that's necessary. We think our employees, can make an informed choice, and quite frankly, most of them are very eager to get it anyway.
It's that sort of choice Mark Perrone of the United Food and Commercial Workers Union says he's prepared to fight for if his union members are required to get the shot by their bosses.
But if the employers come to us and say, look, we're going to mandate it or we're going to put somebody off the job, we're going to represent our membership.
And while more companies and small businesses are opting for rewarding or encouraging their workforce to get vaccinated, if your boss does make it mandatory, you may be left without a choice.
Well, the employer does have a legal obligation to maintain a safe and healthy work environment, and that includes protecting the individual employees themselves and their coworkers and customers.
Andrew Dimbert, ABC News, Washington.
Many people have been asking that question. Our thanks to Andrew for that. Still ahead here on Prime, Democrats unveil an ambitious plan to overhaul America's immigration policy, but does it stand a chance of passing? We'll ask a lawmaker. Another school in Nigeria is attacked, more school children abducted. And the pandemic is changing the makeup and population of cities as many choose to relocate. We take a look by the numbers. But first, our post of the day. Dolly Parton, an icon and legend, but when lawmakers in Tennessee wanted to honor her with a statue at the Capitol, her response, too much going on in the world right now. She did not want to be put on a pedestal for her good deeds.
I know what happened, and I'm not guilty.
Why the fascination with criminal trials? Figure out what's really out there.
She revealed she had murdered his family.
I know in my heart they did this.
It's the time of suspicion. The ending's really tough.
You don't know whether truth is going to be difficult to find unless you try to find it.
Spent 20 years behind bars for the murder of her millionaire husband. Now, for the first time since being released from prison, she tells her story.
I did not kill Ron.
But not everyone believes her.
I'm 100% convinced Margaret was responsible.
5 Weddings and a Murder. 2020, Friday at 9/8 Central on ABC.
Soul of a Nation.
America, get ready for this. All the pain, all the joy. A show by Black people for all people about the Black experience in America. It's time to go there. And there will be music. Coming Tuesdays this March to ABC.
Soul of a Nation.
Soul of a Nation. Soul of a Nation. We're ready for this.
Wars, Assault on the Capitol, the ABC News original, exclusively on Hulu, now streaming. With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any other newscast. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir.
We have made it through another week together.
America's #1 most watched newscast across all of television.
The world may feel out of your control, but your happiness doesn't have to be. Learn the secrets to happiness. Listen to the 10% Happier podcast, free on Apple Podcasts.
Robin Roberts, George Stephanopoulos, Michael Strahan. Wake up with America's #1 most watched morning show. ABC's
Good Morning America.
ABC News honored winner for the second straight year with the Edward R. Murrow Award for overall excellence in television. ABC News, America's #1 news source.
Welcome back, everyone. We turn now to some early indications of how the pandemic is transforming America's cities. The nonprofit Milken Institute tracks the economic opportunities and living costs of the country's largest metro areas and ranks the, quote, best performing places. Here's a look at the list. 2021 findings by the numbers. The #1 city for growth and recovery is Provo-Orem, Utah, home to Brigham Young University and a growing hub for high-tech companies. Provo-Orem saw a 28% job growth from 2014 to 2019, and during the downturn of the past year saw a relatively low 1% job loss. San Francisco, on the other hand, fell from the #1 spot last year to #24 this year, due in part to remote work and job losses, which have led to an exodus from some of the country's most expensive cities, according to researchers. Austin, Texas ranks #3. It's a growing tech center with relatively low taxes and cost of living and boasts a 21% job growth from 2014 to 2019. Salt Lake City, Utah took 4th place, and in the small city category, Idaho Falls ranked #1. And finally, while we're seeing shifts in where jobs are located nationwide, layoffs continue. 861,000 Americans filed new unemployment claims last week, according to Labor Department data released today. And we still have lots to get to here on Prime tonight. Emotions running high as Serena Williams loses again to Naomi Osaka. What's next for perhaps the greatest to ever play the game? What is it about the red planet that is constantly captivating our own planet? And news tonight about Bob Dole. But first, a look at our top trending stories on abcnews.com.
We will guide you through it all tonight. We have made it through another week together.
Give me a big hug, Brittany.
We tell all our patients how much they're loved. We hold their hands.
David, we're showing our love and support for all the ICU staff.
They're the heroes in this.
The world may feel out of your control, but your happiness doesn't have to be. Learn the secrets to happiness. Listen to the 10% Happier podcast, free on Apple Podcasts.
Solve Nation.
America, get ready for this. All the pain, all the joy. A show by Black people for all people about the Black experience in America. It's time to go there. And there will be music. Coming Tuesdays this March to ABC.
Soul of a Nation.
Souls of a Nation.
Soul of a Nation. We're ready for this.
ABC News honored winner for the second straight year with the Edward R. Murrow Award for overall excellence in television. ABC News, America's #1 news source.
This is GMA3, what you need to know. GMA3.
A third hour of Good Morning America in the afternoon.
It's all about you. Lunchtime on ABC.
The reality is our country can collapse from within.
You see the white power movement on the march. Klansmen and neo-Nazis, skinheads, it's meant to incite war.
From the KKK to Oklahoma City to Charlottesville, the new documentary event special.
We just need to start talking about race.
Homegrown hate, the war among us.
This is a real wake-up call.
Streaming now on ABC News Live.
Friday nights, 9/8 Central. True crime, cinematic, real-life drama, stunning, the unthinkable. Follow the clues. The Hunt. True crime. 2020. Friday nights, 9/8 Central on ABC.
The most powerful stories of our time, anytime. Nightline.
Millions of Americans from North Carolina to New England up against this bitter winter blast. At least 10 states plus Washington, D.C. under a state of emergency.
We had 22 large trucks out. We got 11 small trucks for the dead ends.
Those in the Northeast also thinking of the South already pummeled by the same storm.
I mean, it's just absolutely horrifying what's going on.
Trucks and cars stuck in the snow in Mississippi, Arkansas, and Tennessee. The streets in Houston, the fourth largest city in the U.S. and so-called energy capital of the world, completely dark. Some in the Lone Star State without lights or heat for days.
Family and I, we've been in the dark since Sunday night.
The entire city under a boil water advisory.
How can we boil water? We don't even have power.
Texans deserve answers about why these shortfalls occurred and how they're going to be corrected, and Texans will get those answers.
Are you buying that stock today?
Yes. GameStop making a full stop on Capitol Hill. A hearing underway on the company's wild stock market ride.
The CEO of the retail investment platform Robinhood is testifying after GameStop's stock price soared 1,600% and Robinhood's decision to halt buying the stock and others on its platform.
You seem to reserve the right to make up the rules as you go along.
Look, I'm sorry for what happened, but what I commit to is making sure that we improve from this, we learn from it, and we don't make the same mistakes in the future.
The co-founder of the social media message board Reddit will also testify after Reddit was the catalyst that led to the surge in trading.
The idea that I use social media to promote GameStop stock to unwitting investors and influence the market is preposterous.
The episode has been portrayed as a victory for the little guys over Wall Street titans. Lawmakers from both parties are among the skeptics.
In Nigeria, another school kidnapping. At 2 a.m., unidentified gunmen reportedly stormed the government science secondary school, killing a student and kidnapping 42 people, 27 of them students. This boy managed to escape.
When I came out, I see them, but I'm run.
Kidnappings for ransom are all too common here. Just 2 months ago, an abduction from another northwest Nigerian school resulted in nearly 350 schoolboys forcibly taken. The Nigerian army says it's pursuing those responsible. Former longtime Kansas Senator Bob Dole revealing his battle with stage 4 lung cancer. At 97, he says he will begin treatment on Monday. The former Republican presidential candidate served in both houses of Congress from 1961 to 1996. He released a statement saying, "While I certainly have some hurdles ahead, I also know that I join millions of Americans who face health challenges of their own."
Serena Williams' actions after her loss in Australia are raising questions about her future.
After Serena Williams lost her Australian Open semifinal match, she stayed on court longer than usual, put her hand on her heart, acknowledging the crowd. Asked after the match if that could be a farewell, the soon-to-be 40-year-old said,
"I don't know. If I ever say farewell, I wouldn't tell anyone." So.
Moments later, when asked about how she played in her loss, Williams suddenly grew emotional.
I don't know. I'm done.
Naomi Osaka, who beat Williams, will face another American, Jennifer Brady, in Saturday's final.
While many in Texas remain in the dark and cold, one of their senators, Senator Ted Cruz, is facing serious backlash today as he headed south of the border, caught boarding a flight with his family to Cancun. He quickly diverted back to Texas, where he is now trying to explain his actions. Our Trevor Ault has the very latest.
With Texas reeling and millions of his constituents without power or water, Texas Senator Ted Cruz jetted off to sunny Cancun with his family. Cameras catching him at the airport, those pictures making headlines in his storm-ravaged state.
Senator Ted Cruz made time for a family vacation in the middle of our state's historic winter storm.
This is quite maddening.
Yeah.
Upsetting, as you said earlier. Cruz in Cancun while we're dealing with this mess.
Just Monday, Cruz warned his fellow Texans a dangerous storm was coming, even urging them to stay home.
We could see up to 100 people lose their lives this week in Texas, so don't risk it. Keep your family safe and just stay home and hug your kids.
Of course, the senator didn't stay home himself. 2 days later, he was off to Mexico. The Houston Police Department, which was grappling with the natural disaster, says a member of the Cruz team called and, quote, requested assistance for the senator at the airport. Meanwhile, in Galveston, Randall Hall was shivering inside his house at just 42 degrees.
It appears that yesterday Senator Ted Cruz flew to Cancun. How do you feel about that?
He can stay there, actually.
Yeah, you don't need him back?
We don't need him back in Houston or in the U.S. Senate, no.
Today, Democrats like the mayor of Houston were unsparing.
Well, it's certainly much warmer where he's going. Let me just put it like that.
And the Republican governor was at a loss for words.
Candidly, I haven't been following people's vacation plans. We've been working literally all night.
It took hours for the Cruz team to acknowledge he had flown to Cancun. The senator saying in a statement, with school canceled for the week, our girls asked to take a trip with friends. Wanting to be a good dad, I flew down with them last night and am flying back this afternoon. Late today, cameras caught Cruz pulling a suitcase through Cancun International Airport, heading home.
Yesterday, my daughters asked if they could take a trip with some friends, and Heidi and I agreed, so I flew down with them last night. Here, and now I'm headed back to Texas and back to continuing to work to try to get the power up.
And Senator Cruz just admitted to reporters moments ago that he was originally planning on staying in Mexico through the weekend. He is now calling this trip a mistake and said he needed to be here in Texas. Lindsay?
Today, Democrats introduced a sweeping immigration reform bill. Three of the biggest focuses of the bill are a pathway to citizenship, attacking the border backlog head-on, and continued improvements to border security. Joining us now, he is one of the leading members of Congress behind this bill, California Representative Linda Sanchez. Congresswoman, thank you so much for joining us today. Now, this bill, which mirrors a lot of what President Biden laid out during his first day in office, is one of the most wide-ranging immigration rollouts that we've seen in decades. What's the reality of this getting enough Republican support to make this into a reality?
Well, it's interesting. People keep asking me that, but there is a reality that we can get Republican support for this bill. In the last Congress, we were able to pass a number of pieces of immigration reform legislation with Republican support. I think this bill, there's a lot to like in it, and I think once we sit down and have those conversations, we can begin to educate Republicans about what is in the bill and why it makes our country safer, stronger, and more prosperous. So it's just a matter of doing the outreach and answering questions and trying to address concerns. Clearly, this is the starting point. No piece of legislation at the start looks like the final piece of legislation when we vote on it. It's just the beginning of a very democratic process, but there's absolutely no reason why we can't get Republican support for this bill.
And you just said that earlier during a press conference, and also just now, that we all know that when you introduce a bill, oftentimes the end result is not the same as the starting result, given everything that is going on in our country right now between COVID, vaccines, and the economy. Would you say that this is the best time to present this bill, and how much of the original proposal are you willing to sacrifice?
So I will just say this. This is a common sense solution to immigration reform that has plagued our immigration system for decades. Now is certainly the time. Most of the people who will be applying through citizenship through this process are already living and working here in the United States. Many of them are essential workers who have kept food on the shelves of our grocery stores during this pandemic, who have helped care for the elderly in nursing facilities, who have held the hands of patients who took their last breath in the emergency room, people who were affected by COVID. These are parts of our community. They are integral parts of our community's families, and they deserve some relief. This bill, you ask any economist, will help grow our economy and reduce our deficit. So, yeah, now is the time.
And the bill lays out a pathway to citizenship over the span of 8 years. How can you reassure the undocumented community of 11 million that their information is in safe hands with the Biden government? Right now, he's only elected to serve, of course, for 4 years. And on the other side of that argument, what kind of vetting will be done to make sure that the people granted this opportunity are truly deserving of it?
Well, there is a rigorous application process. Obviously, there will be the background checks that are accompany that, the need to pay fees. So there will be a rigorous process for making sure that these folks should be on the path to citizenship. There are privacy protections included within this bill. I mean, the bill is sweeping. It has identified most of the choke points of our legal immigration system and helps to unsnarl those problems so that we can keep families from being separated for decades or waiting decades to reunite with loved ones.
And this bill also includes a focus on the factors that cause people to migrate. The price tag on it would be $4 billion over the span of 4 years. Who would provide oversight of that money to make sure that it isn't placed in the wrong hands of the very foreign government officials who share a huge portion of the responsibility for the conditions of these countries?
Sure. I'm glad you've asked that question, because what this bill does that is different from any immigration bill prior is it seeks to address the root causes, the reasons why people come north, and it creates a plan to use collaboration with the international community, with the private sector, to create benchmarks and help governments try to reduce things like poverty, violence, corruption, to establish rule of law and democratic institutions in these countries. If we are able to get at the root causes that cause many of these people to flee and come north, we can stem much of the tide of immigration. But, you know, the last administration, they tried every tool within their reach to make immigration as restrictive, as difficult as possible, and that did not work. You know, we had a president that was fixated on a wall, and that's not a solution to a modern day problem. This bill that is the Biden vision commits resources and infrastructure at our ports of entry to make sure that we are able to manage our southern border. And with that is a multi-pronged approach with getting at the root causes, I think is the right set of common sense policies that will help us fix this problem once and for all.
All right, so we'll see if your closers are able to make it happen. Congresswoman Sanchez, we thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for your interest.
Mary Bruce joins us now. Mary, we've seen so many versions of immigration reform over the years. Just give us a sense of how likely this is, with so much on the agenda from the Biden administration right now, how realistic it is that this moves forward anytime soon.
Well, passing a comprehensive immigration bill like this is certainly going to be a very heavy lift. This would be the most sweeping overhaul of our immigration system in 3 decades. And Democrats realize that getting Republicans on board with this is going to be really difficult. Now, Democrats do have options, right? They could break this off, do it piecemeal, try to pass it in chunks, doing simply what has the most potential for bipartisanship. Some Democrats on the Hill support that. Or Democrats could simply try to go it alone. But that would require that they water down the bill significantly. Now, you mentioned what else is on Washington's plate, and there's a lot, right? They're trying to pass this COVID relief bill. They want to continue doing another round of economic stimulus, an infrastructure plan. So, Lindsay, I suspect that actually seeing some action on this immigration plan could take some time.
All right, Mary Bruce, our thanks to you.
Thank you.
Back in a moment with another quick trip to Mars.
If you're getting tired of life on this planet,
T-1 minute.
Then today, travel with us to Mars.
T-minus 30 seconds.
Be there, see it all live as NASA attempts its biggest landing ever on the Red Planet in search of ancient life, the intergalactic drama, the tension, the history as it happens live. Mission to Mars, streaming live this afternoon on ABC News Live, starting at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. It will be out of this world. Brought to you by Adobe Sign. Business moves with Adobe.
I know what happened, and I'm not guilty.
Why the fascination with criminal trials? Figure out what's really out there.
She revealed she had murdered his family.
I know in my heart they did this.
It's the time of suspicion.
The ending's really tough.
You don't know whether truth is going to be difficult to find unless you try to find it.
Coming Tuesday this March to ABC, a show by Black people for all people about the Black experience in America. And there will be music.
Soul of a nation.
Soul of a nation. We're ready for this.
Hours, Assault on the Capitol, the ABC News original, exclusively on Hulu, now streaming.
Go to the chapel and gonna get married.
She spent 20 years behind bars for the murder of her millionaire husband. Now, for the first time since being released from prison, she tells her story.
I did not kill Ron.
But not everyone believes her.
I'm 100% convinced Margaret was responsible.
5 Weddings and a Murder. 2020, Friday at 9/8 Central on ABC.
The reality is our country can collapse from within.
You see the white power movement on the march.
You will not replace us!
Klansmen and neo-Nazis, skinheads, it's meant to incite war.
From the KKK to Oklahoma City to Charlottesville, the new documentary event special.
We just need to start talking about race.
Homegrown Hate, the war among us.
This is a real wake-up call.
Streaming now on ABC News Live.
Welcome back. What is it about Mars that has long captivated our attention? Will Reeve reports.
Wait a minute, something's happening. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a grave announcement to make. That those strange beings who landed in the Jersey farmlands tonight are the vanguard of an invading army from the planet Mars.
In October 1938, radio listeners nationwide were sent into a panic. Aliens were invading Earth.
Orson Welles did this radio broadcast called The War of the Worlds, and it interrupted the normal broadcast as if there was news that the Martians had landed.
It was the first instance of reality TV because it was very fake, but people still got all up in their feelings about it.
It turns out that our feelings about Mars date back to the beginning of recorded history. The ancient Greeks named it Ares after their god of war, murder, and bloodshed, while the ancient Romans get credit for the name Mars after their god of war. The first human to see the red planet through a telescope? Galileo in 1610. Hollywood has had its eyes on Mars for decades. Its mysterious allure perfect fodder for film.
We come in peace.
If you're a millennial, everybody watched this at a sleepover was Mars Attacks. If the aliens on Mars don't look like the aliens in Mars Attacks, whoa, I'm not interested.
Get out of the way, back up!
From Tom Cruise in 2005's film adaptation of War of the Worlds, to Elton John's 1972 hit Rocket Man, Mars has drawn audiences into its orbit like no other planet in our galaxy.
The Martian with Matt Damon to me was about his gardening.
So I got to make water and grow food on a planet where nothing grows.
And I was with him on that journey. I'm like, Matt, let's look at that zucchini. Let's see how that's coming along.
Surprise.
And in 2020, when much of Earth was sheltering in place, the Hilary Swank Netflix series Away helped us escape to Mars yet again.
They contacted me looking for some help.
Anyone want to go again?
Particularly with the personal aspects of being an astronaut. What it's like to leave your family, what it's like to be part of a crew.
I claim this planet in the name of Mars.
Mars's place in pop culture has also inspired and enchanted children for generations.
Marvin the Martian was created by Chuck Jones back in the 40s. His original voice was more like this.
Oh, goody. Another uranium Pu-36 explosive space modulator.
And then he came back several years later, and he had a totally different voice.
I claim this planet in the name of Mars.
I played Marvin the Martian in the original Space Jam back in the 90s.
Ready?
Eric Bauza is doing them right now.
Probably nothing.
I was always a Marvin the Martian fan, ever since the original 1994 Super Bowl commercial.
Give me those Air Jordans. No, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, no, yes, no.
Warner Brothers just announced that I am in the movie Space Jam: A New Legacy. It comes out July 19, 2021.
As planet Earth anxiously prepares for Marvin's next visit from Mars,
And liftoff.
the question remains, why exactly are we trying so hard to get to Mars?
We've really messed things up over here on Earth. And rather than fixing them, we're like, we'll just start over with a new wife. She's younger and different, and none of the same mistakes will be made.
You're gonna hear rappers talking about having a house on Mars.
Today's Mars landing represents the beginning of a new and exciting era of Mars exploration, and everyone is rooting for Perseverance to lead the way.
This is Marvin the Martian, Earth creatures. I wish the best of luck to all of the scientists on your successful landing today. Isn't that lovely?
Love hearing the man behind that Martian voice. Our thanks to Will for that. And before we go tonight, the image of the day. Of course, this picture just felt like a must. This is the first picture sent back to our planet from the Perseverance, aka Percy, and many more of those images to come. That is our show for this hour. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. I'm Lindsay Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us, and have a great night.